Morning guys, welcome back to the shop. On this week's video I have this, it is a Sandusky Toolworks 5/16 beading plane, and it needs a new wedge. So this wedge isn't completely destroyed, but it's ruined enough. Let me get another one to show you. This is just kind of an example of what it should be looking like. And you can see that this thing's pretty much ruined. I mean, most of the material's just gone. So it needs to be remade, and I actually plan on using this other plane to cut the wood that I need out from this plane. So this is a, I'm not really sure about the EW Pennant, maybe, something. It's hard to read, but it is a 1/4 inch beading plane, but it is missing this boxing here. This boxing is still here, but it doesn't fit properly. The fence that was on there has broke off, and they've tacked on a random strip of wood to be the fence. It doesn't have a plane, or it doesn't have an iron, and it also doesn't have a wedge. So this thing is, as far as I'm concerned, this thing is complete garbage. And really the only redeeming quality it has is that it is made of the same material that I need to make a wedge for this plane. So that's what I'm going to do. And I know this is probably going to be a controversial thing to do, because there's going to be people that say, well, you know, you could put new boxing in, and you could fix the fence, and you could you know, make a new iron, and then you could make a wedge, and then you'd have a plane. But I mean, the amount of work it would take to make this thing usable again is not by any means practical. So I'm not even going to bother. It does have some people's names on here, the former owners. One says W.T. Street Jr., and one says, I think it's a B.M. Worthington. So this Worthington name I'm not going to be able to salvage, because it's on here at an angle, and it's the plane. I won't have enough wood to keep the name on the wedge that I make. But the W.T. Street Jr. is the right size. So when I rip this out, I'm going to go through the extra work to actually make my wedge with his name on the wedge, so that at least some part of this plane's history will, you know, pass on. And I know it is just extra work, and you know, for most people it probably doesn't actually matter. But to me, you know, these tools come with a lot of history, and that's somebody who, you know, used this tool, apparently used it a lot. Maybe it doesn't mean anything to anybody else, but to me, that's worth savings. So how I'm going to do this is, since I have the wedge, the original wedge for the plane, I can use it to determine the thickness that I need. So I will set the thickness on my marking gauge, mark out a line all the way around the plane. Well, first I'm going to have to pop this fence off of here, and hopefully I can get all the nails out. But I'm going to pop this fence they added on off, mark a line all the way around, take a rip saw and rip that piece off, and then trace the old wedge, well, with a new head on it, onto the piece that I've ripped off, cut that out with a couple different kind of saws, and then kind of do some final shaping. I'll have to trim this end up with a chisel, do some final shaping, maybe use some rasp or files to kind of give it that final surface, oil it, and then put it in the plane, and it'll completely be done. Of course, I don't know where my pliers went. think I'm going to plane down this little bit of what's left of the fence and probably that boxing just to make it easier to mark my line on here. All right, so this should be the right thickness, and it is. So now I've just got to trace out the shape of the wedge. All right, now I'll have to use the original for the majority of the wedge, but then I'll use this other one to trace out the head. Okay. All right, I don't know how well you'll be able to see that, but I've got to cut that out now. And I will get some of this Worthington name on here, but it won't be much. It'll just say Worth. So, but yeah. Probably the easiest to go this way, I guess. I think this turning saw might be the best saw for this job. Maybe. Let's try it out and see. Here's my roughed out wedge. So, one thing that is a little bit of a problem, it's not a huge problem, but it's a little bit of a problem, is the name that I was trying to save. So the name that I was trying to save is right over the top of the cutout for the iron on the plane. So I'm going to take the old wedge and glue it on here, and then once that glue's dry, I'll trim all this up and it'll just be a piece of the old wedge. You know, I'll trim the ends off, trim it flush this way, and then it'll just end up just being a piece of this old wedge. You know, it'll be a thin piece that'll be basically laminated onto right there. So it's not a huge deal. I don't think it's going to have much of an effect on the wedge, like the longevity of the wedge, but we'll see. So that's my next step now. I don't think it'll really affect it any. And I could probably just, I really could just leave that hollow space there and it'll be fine. But I'm afraid you're probably going to end up seeing it. It's a little snug to be put in there right now, but yeah, I mean, it's going to stick out about more or less. Yeah, you're going to end up seeing that. You'll end up seeing that hollow spot if I don't fill it in. So I'm just going to go ahead and get it filled in just to make it look a little nicer. Probably once it's all planed down smooth and oiled and everything, you probably won't even ever know that it was ever there. But for the time being, alright, so I'll just let that dry. Alright, so this glue is dry, or dry enough anyway, that I think I should be able to start trimming this up. So what I'll do is trim off this end and this end, and then I'll cut off the thickness of it, because it's only, I mean, there's a very thin amount that's actually going to be left behind. But once I get all this part trimmed up, then I will start refining these edges and the shape of the top part of the wedge, and then start working on fitment and making sure that it's going to fit properly. And then I'll oil it and it'll be ready to go. I think that's pretty much it for shaping it. Maybe a little touch up right there. Kind of a high spot. Kind of mark where I want it to be cut off at. Probably cut off right here. And then it will need to be tapered to allow the shavings, when the shavings come in, to be ejected out the side. So I'll have to cut a taper on this side. Really what I'm checking for is I want to make sure that the back side of this wedge, this side, is flush up against the inside wall of the plane. And I want to make sure that there's not any gaps or anything where shavings are going to get stuck or wedged in there and then cause buildup and cause problems. But it doesn't look like there's any kind of issue right now. That looks pretty good. I mean, the iron still needs to be sharpened, obviously. But I think that's about it for the wedge.